In the previous game I just talked about, the AFC Championship game between the Baltimore Ravens and New England Patriots, with the way the Baltimore has really evolved into an offensive team this year and New England's defense is playing better, it's not so much a battle of, strength versus strength. That's not the case in this game. The NFC title game. San Francisco traveling to hot Atlanta to play the Dirty Birds. Let me tell you this. This truly is a game of strength versus strength. The Falcons offense, led by quarterback Matt Ryan and Pro Bowl wide receivers Julio Jones and Roddy White, against a brick wall of a defense. The 49ers, led by Alden Smith, Justin Smith, Ahmad Brooks, Carlos Rogers, so many great players across the board. Patrick Willis, Navarre Bowman. Jesus, it reads like a Pro Bowl roster. And statistically, it shows it. This team in Frisco is second in points allowed, third in yards allowed, at 17.1 points and 294.4 yards. And their turnover margin, not too shabby, +9. They get takeaways. Atlanta, 26 points a game, 7th best in the league. And their yards per game, a respectable 8 at 369. Like the Patriots and the Ravens, these teams played several opponents in common. However, it wasn't just one or two games. The Falcons and the Niners played 6 and 7 games respectively against common opponents. In those the 5 opponents the two teams played were the Arizona Cardinals, the Detroit Lions, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants, and the Seattle Seahawks. It's not going to be the same number of games because San Francisco played 2 division rivals where Atlanta only played 1. San Francisco swept Arizona, beat Detroit and New Orleans, lost to the Giants and the Seahawks, but beat Seattle in one of the other matchups. The Falcons beat the Cardinals, Lions, Giants, and Seahawks, but split their regular season meetings with the New Orleans Saints. The last 5 meetings with these two, they've only met 5 times since 2001. And only one of those was in this decade. So you can really throw the previous 4 out the window. So really the last game that could be any kind of telltale sign was 2010. The Niners went 6-10, and the Falcons were the top seed in the NFC. And Atlanta won that game 16-14. So San Francisco's defense has proven that they can struggle. They can hold their own against this Falcons offense. But over the past 5 meetings, again, it really doesn't make much of a difference because they're not so relevant. Because honestly, is anybody on the 0-1 Falcons or the 0-1 Niners still on this team? No. The points per game, Atlanta averaged to win 27-19 was the average score. And you can talk about stats all you want. You got to break it down position by position and see how these teams would match up. And that's where I come in and tell you what I see is going on. Let's start off with the most important position. Colin Kaepernick last week for the 49ers had the greatest rushing performance a quarterback ever had. Oh, by the way, through the air still threw for 263 for a combined total of 444 yards he accounted for. That's sick. That's not just incredible. That's sick. No, nothing Green Bay could do could stop it. Then he got Atlanta. Matt Ryan, respectable 3 touchdowns against the Seattle Seahawks, led him on a drive to win the game with 11 seconds left. I got to give a slight edge to Atlanta because Kaepernick is still very inexperienced. Kaepernick still has a way to go to be a truly legitimate NFL starter. Like, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying he's still got to, become more experienced. But Matt Ryan's proven he can play well. He's proven that, he's won a playoff game finally. And the getting the monkey off his back, I think, was big for him. But most of the other positions, San Francisco has them beat. Running back in particular, with Frank Gore, and some other great guys. I know Atlanta's got Michael Turner, who's been in the Pro Bowl a lot, and Jaquiz Rogers, who's a young guy out of Oregon State. But Frank Gore is still rushing for 1,300 yards a season, and Michael Turner hit a brick wall this year. Wide receiver, tight end, huge advantage to Atlanta. They got the most prolific receiving tight end, Tony Gonzalez, in NFL history, and 2 receivers in Jones and White that have been in the Pro Bowl, and they got other guys like Harry Douglas who can make a play every now and then. Now the offensive line. In terms of pass blocking and run blocking, you can make an argument to push. Because Atlanta, not so much about their pass blocking, but Frisco's pass blocking is very, very subpar. But run blocking, they are so much better. They open up running lanes for their running backs. Atlanta used to be able to do that. They haven't been able to do that this year. And I think that's cost them an undefeated season. Because there have been games where they literally, opponents went in knowing all you got to do is shut down the passing game and you can beat them. Speaking of shutting down, as a defense needs to do, the Niners had the edge in all 3 defensive categories. You can look at Justin Smith and pretty much stop there. One of the greatest 3-4 defensive ends in league history. Taking up 2-3 blockers at a time. He's got that old man strength. That he can just take guys and move them, allow other guys, do their positions. But when you look at the linebacking core, and you've got, and this is their linebacking core starting, Ahmad Brooks, Alden Smith, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. That's kind of frightening. And you look at the secondary for San Francisco. Carlos Rogers, Deshaun Goldston, Dante Whitner. I mean, the whole team the whole defense reads like a Pro Bowl roster. The team that John Harbaugh in his 2 years in San Francisco has put together is just been incredible. They're 26-8-1 since he took over in 2011. The only other advantage Atlanta has is kicker because David Akers for San Francisco has been struggling so far. They actually brought in Billy Cundiff, who was the kicker who blew the Ravens' chance of making the Super Bowl last AFC Championship game against New England, to compete with Akers. I mean, come on. Cundiff can't make a field goal to save his life. I could have beaten him. If you want to bring in competition to spur your kicker, you bring in a guy who's proven he can get the job done. Not a guy like that. I thought it was funny. But other than that, San Francisco pretty much has a huge advantage, especially in coaching. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's won more playoff games in 2 years than Mike Smith's done in 5. And you can make the argument that Atlanta should have won more because they've been in more games. But a record of 26-8-1 for 74.3% in 2 years speaks for itself. That average is, counting playoffs, 13 wins a year. It's pretty damn good. But statistically breaking it down, these two teams are polar opposites, if you look at it. San Francisco's 4th in running the football, 155 yards a game. Atlanta's 29th in 87. Passing, Atlanta's 6th, 282. San Francisco's 206 for 23rd in the league. But San Francisco's passing offense in its rank is deceiving because of what Kaepernick can do with his arm. And when he's had to play this year, he's played well. Whenever the situation has needed his best, he's answered the bell. I said in an earlier podcast I did over here, was replacing Alex Smith with Kaepernick the best move? And yes, it is, because Alex Smith can get you to those big games, but Kaepernick can make the confetti fall on your head in early February. A.k.a. he can help you get that ring. But Atlanta moving the football against San Francisco is going to be hard, because San Francisco, 38 sacks in the year, top 6 pass rush. Opponents don't have a really good day throwing the football. San Francisco gives up 200 yards a game, which is 4th in the league. Rush defense, you're not going to do much there either. They give up 94 yards a game for 4th in the league. There's really this defense for San Francisco. It's one of the best in the game. And this is going to be different from Seattle's front 7. Seattle's front 7 is more or less designed to just neutralize it and let the secondary take over with guys like Sherman and Browner and Earl Thomas. San Francisco's front seven and their 3-4 alignment is just awesome. And really, you look at the way that unit is played, it's been awesome. But the real defense that has to step up is Atlanta's. And the way that they defend Colin Kaepernick. Because if you watched the game against the Packers, you saw the way that they scorched Green Bay on the ground. 181 yards rushing. Now, Atlanta has done some work against running quarterbacks this year, most notably Cam Newton for Carolina. Now, the Carolina Panthers went 7-9 this year and 6-10 last year. And in all four of those games, Cam Newton pretty much lit up Atlanta. In the two games this year, 704 yards of offense. And in Atlanta, where the Falcons are supposedly almost unbeatable, they almost lost the game. If Cam Newton's fumble doesn't push it to a 4th and 1 instead of a first down, Panthers run out the clock and win it. And then Atlanta got blown out in the rematch in Carolina. But, Kaepernick is a very good thrower of the football. Not quite at the level of Newton, but pretty close. But his speed is just so much quicker than Cam. It's going to be tough for Atlanta to contain that. And I know they've got a 4-3 defense that sticks to their assignments, but this ain't like Seattle. This ain't going to be like, what they went up against Seattle, because Russell Wilson, they ran the same kind of read option play that the Niners do. But Russell Wilson, little guy, he's not as big and as fast as Kaepernick. We'll see if they can hold him down. I don't see Atlanta really holding down Kaepernick much. I don't see him getting 100 yards. I just don't see him, getting stopped much. Then again, they did hold the Seattle Seahawks' third-ranked running game 40 yards below their season average. So that's a huge plus. But I've talked about how San Francisco's defense has been rating like a Pro Bowl roster the last 2 years, and they have, with the studs that they have. But let's not forget, Matt Ryan's a pretty good quarterback. And, you can say whatever you want about, the pressure he's under. I think he's going to play well. I think he's going to play well against the 49ers. And, maybe it's kind of a stretch to say well, but I think good. And I say good because, he won a playoff game. The monkey's off his back. He's not going to have to worry about answering that question anymore. He's at home, where he's 34-5 in his career, counting playoffs. And he's got two top-notch receivers in Jones and White. This year, those two have combined for 171 catches, 2,549 yards, and 17 touchdowns. And I know the 49ers defense is an elite defense, but still, Matt Ryan's going to throw for a lot of yards and at least a couple of touchdowns on Sunday. They could hold him down. San Francisco held down Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay and Tom Brady in New England for most of the game. Matt Ryan in Atlanta, it's going to be tough again. Another tough task. Is Matt Ryan the same class as Rodgers or Brady? No. But I don't see Matt Ryan going out there and shitting all over himself like he did the last two playoff games at home. The last playoff game at home. Not this year, but previous years. The one against Green Bay, when Green Bay blew him out 48-21. I don't see that happening. But and I've talked about Kaepernick. I've talked about Matt Ryan. I've talked about Colin Kaepernick too. But really, the two units for those two teams, that need to play better are guys. For San Francisco needs to have a big day out of tight end Vernon Davis. And Atlanta's offensive line is going to have to play really well too. Now, I'll talk about Atlanta's offensive line first, because I'm on the subject of their line and the challenge that they face. Now, Matt Ryan's offensive line has given up the 8th fewest sacks in the league. So on paper, you think, pretty good. Be a test for the Niners. Not necessarily. Carolina has one of the most mediocre defenses in the league. And he got sacked 7 times in that game by that defense. And he was rushed this year in a lot of his throws, even in games where he wasn't sacked. Like, I went through all the games and saw how he was sacked. Maybe I think like 10 or 11 of the games he was only sacked like once or nothing. The thing is this. They didn't play a lot of good teams with pass rushes. This will be the biggest test they've went against. Because you've got Justin Smith, who's a great defensive end, and you got Alden Smith as outside linebacker, 19.5 sacks. That's ridiculous. The team is 38 on the year, and that's going to be the sternest test that line has played this year. That rush has some serious bite to it, and we'll have to see how well Atlanta's offensive line plays. Whether it be the tight ends blocking, you never know. Tight end's always an extension of the offensive line. If that's the case, the extension of the offensive line for San Francisco, a.k.a. Vernon Davis, he's got to have a good game. Because Vernon Davis, let's not forget, he's had kind of a receding drought this year. His numbers have dropped off. He's not been, utilized as much, and that's a mistake. Because let's not forget last year what he did against the Saints in the divisional round. Had the best game a tight end ever had in the playoffs. 7 catches, $180, and 2 touchdowns. The last one coming in within less than a minute to play. The Niners won the game 36-32. Now, I know the guys like Michael Crabtree have stepped up. And Mario Manningham did the free agent acquisition before he got hurt. But literally, there's nobody on that defense for Atlanta that can match up with Vernon Davis. Unless you want to double him. Which is just a stupid idea. Because then you're taking guys off Crabtree and Moss. And Moss is an old man, but he can still run. You think Randy Moss wants revenge? Because his rookie year, he was with the 98 Vikings, the highest scoring team in the league history at that point. Who did they lose to in the title game? The Falcons. You don't think Randy Moss can be out for revenge? Let me tell you something. Vernon Davis, when he plays well, that whole offense plays well. Because he can block as good as any tight end in the league. His blocking's gotten so much better since he entered the league. And his pass catching abilities. The guy's athletic for a big man. Now, kind of lost in the shuffle is I've just talked about San Francisco's tight end. What about Atlanta's? I said Ray Lewis in my previous segment, Ray Lewis, and the fact that he's retiring once the season's over. Well, Tony Gonzalez said the same thing. Now, Tony Gonzalez's impact on the Atlanta Falcons is different than Ray Lewis's on the Ravens. It's different because he's not so much a vocal leader like Ray is. He's more like a, more or less a lead by example kind of guy. But Tony Gonzalez this year, his first team All-NFL as a tight end. For a guy that old, for a guy playing that long, to do that is just phenomenal. Ray Lewis, even if he'd have played the whole year, wouldn't have even been a Pro Bowl nomination. Or 5th or 6th team All-NFL, And Tony Gonzalez was selected by his peers to be the best tight end in the league this year. It's a hell of an honor, and it just goes to show you how big an impact he has. Because anytime he's on the field, you got to match up with him. Now, the linebackers for the Niners are going to be a tough test. It's not going to be easy pickings like it was against Seattle. But it's going to still be something that we'll see if Tony can take advantage of. He's been one of Matt Ryan's security blankets his whole tenure in Atlanta, and I look to see if that changes. Now, I broke down the simulation between the Niners and the Falcons, and I was shocked because the Niners won 18 out of the 25 times. The most in one game, San Francisco put 58 up, Atlanta put up 47. The fewest given up, San Francisco gave up nothing in one of the games, and Atlanta gave up just a field goal. But the average score for those games was 28-19. San Francisco won. Well, I've given you all the facts. Now it's time to finally decide who the hell is going to win this game. And it may be bold to say that on Conference Championship Sunday, that both the road teams will win, but that's exactly what I'm doing. When Baltimore beat Denver, I was out that night. When I came back, I looked at my dad and we were talking about the game. And I told him, I said, Dad, in New Orleans on February 3rd, 2 Harbaughs will be coaching in the Super Bowl. I am predicting it will happen. And I think I'm going to be right. Because this game is a lot different than pick. I just don't get why New England's favored by more points to beat Baltimore than San Francisco is to beat Atlanta. The only reason is because Frisco's going on the road and Atlanta always wins at home. Here's the point I'm trying to make. San Francisco is a better team than Atlanta. You can play them anywhere, anytime, any weather. San Francisco will win. The 49er defense has given Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady some major headaches this year. Let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers has not played well against this defense. And Tom Brady, how many points did he put on that defense by the end of the third quarter when they played in Foxborough a few weeks ago? 3? This 49er defense is not getting the credit they deserve, and I'm still not giving enough credit. I'm still not giving enough credit how good they are. But Matty Ice, you're not in the class of Brady and Rodgers. So if you're not in their class and they shut them down, what are they going to do to you? I look at it like this. If Matt Ryan went out and played well and beat the Niners, I'd be surprised. Rodgers and Brady doesn't surprise me much when they put up those numbers because I'm used to it. I'm not used to seeing Matt Ryan win all these games, win too many playoff games. He's a good quarterback, yes, top 10 in the league. But this game, he's literally going to have to play the game of his life for this team to win. Because San Francisco, they're not designed like the Seattle Seahawks are. I know Seattle's a good team and was picked by many people to win the Super Bowl, surprisingly, as a road team. But here's the point I'm trying to make. San Francisco's running commitment is much greater than Seattle's. San Francisco can move the ball through the air better, and their front seven, that front seven for San Francisco is the most flexible front seven I've ever seen, next to the '08 Steelers. Rushing the passer, stopping the run, hitting the quarterback, everything. They do everything. Matt Ryan's not prepared for the all-out assault he's going to receive tomorrow. And I know Atlanta, now you flip it over the other side of the ball, and you see the way the 49ers move the ball on offense. And you see the way that they play. San Francisco is a balanced team. I know you may not think that, but, they're not going to give up on either facet. If Atlanta comes out and gets up 21-3 on them, they're not going to just dig a foxhole and start letting Kaepernick throw every down. They're still going to run the football. They're the most balanced offense right now in the league. Switching to Colin Kaepernick gave them the upside they needed to get to the Super Bowl, which they're going to do. San Francisco, let me tell you something. Niner fans, get ready for a trip to New Orleans because your Niners are bringing this game home. 34-24. Bam.